Be live in 2 seconds here, even though we start streaming. There we go. Take it away, Tami.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is Tami Bonnell, proud member of the NDILC, National Diversity Leadership Inclusion Council, and I am part of that with these beautiful women that are on the screen today. And we're talking about our 8th leadership principle, being present. Before I go into introducing them and having them talk, I think that it's just so important, more so since COVID than any other time, but it's always been important. People want to matter. They want to be part of something better. And technology, even though it's provided us with more reach, more connecting to other people, it's supposed to be a tool, and people are using it as their form of only social and not being present when they're in front of somebody. It started with the telephone, then it went to the cell phone. Now you can have your entire office on your cell phone, and people really need to learn the times to put it down and be completely present. For me, you do better when you're in the present tense. You accomplish more when you're in the present tense. And it's something we need to remind ourselves of so often, whether you practice any type of meditation so that you're in the present tense, but when you're with another person and they want to matter so much, not just the Great Resignation, but Wall Street Journal said it better than anyone else. People want to be part of those key 2 words, something better. And they really want to belong, and they want to belong on their terms, the things that they see as a purpose. And we have to really focus on being present with them. We're seeing way too much multitasking. Multitasking is a myth. It's not possible to actually multitask. We just think we're getting more stuff done. And in fact, we're being less effective, less efficient. And so I think all of this about talking about how you can be more present when you're there. So I'm just going to start off with, I believe that it's strongly either agree, hey, we're both going to shut off our phones right now so that I can completely listen. I want to be fully in the moment. I care enough about you to shut off my phone and have me be fully present. And I think that we need to be really active listeners. That being said, before I go into any critical meeting with anyone, I Google them, I friend them on Facebook, I connect with them on LinkedIn, and I take some notes, because I think that the sooner we can make a connection, we're both going to stay in the moment a little bit longer and really be present. So I know that it's a huge impact for everyone. And, Erica, I want to turn it over to you first. And Erica Courtney has been a fighter pilot and been in the service, and we can't thank you enough for your service. But recently you really did a huge task of being so strategic with immigrants coming over. And I think, helping refugees, running into so many things and really putting together a system in real time. And I think that so much of those lessons really can help shine a light on everyone that's present today. Do you mind sharing some of that?
Sure. So we brought over 70,000 Afghan refugees. And I was at Task Force McCoy in Wisconsin, where we brought in the most, 13,000 refugees. And, whether you have a near life, like a death experience in your own life, or something shook you to the core, so much so that it forces you to be present and to sort of reflect and evaluate where you've come, where you're at, and potentially where you want to be. When you see people like that have absolutely nothing but the clothes on their back, coming off the planes, battered and bruised, and, a week of very little attention, showing up on foreign shores, not having a clue what life is going to look like in front of them. It does put things in perspective. And I think that anybody who travels and has somewhat of a global mindset sees that as well. When you see people suffering, when you see people living in dire circumstances, it makes you appreciate what you have. So being there for about 5 months, that was my focus. Do I have other things going on in life? Absolutely. But my focus was not anything to do with, anything in my world. It was giving my all to the people who hit rock bottom. And it required you to be fully in the moment and present. And the language barrier. We all have faced this, but there's something about just looking someone in the eye and understanding the structure of the older women down to the younger women and connecting through nonverbal cues, and making people feel like they're valued and that they're being heard. So, that's kind of my experience with dealing with, thousands of, mostly, we dealt with the women whose needs were being neglected, and ensuring that they were being taken care of and they were being heard.
You put a system together, and that's an awful lot of people to be over in order to be able to do that. So how did you, honestly, it just sounds like beyond a daunting task. Did you break it down into small things? Did you give everyone some similar instructions of, hey, here's the best way for us to stay with them so that they feel like they're being heard, they feel like they're being recognized?
Yeah, I'll try to give you the bubblegum version. So went in there, as a woman, looked around, and I realized that, the women weren't walking around with the cell phones. It was the men. And the way that the military was pushing information out was through WhatsApp, through technology, or through banners, which again, most of these women didn't know how to read, and they didn't have the technology to connect on what resources were available to them on the installation and preparing them for life outside of, the DoD walls. So it became very apparent to me that I needed to kind of embed. I sat through a bunch of classes, and I would see how the women would react to the instructors and ask questions in terms of what their needs were. And their needs were not being met. So because I worked directly for the general, I had a little bit of a pull, immediately formed 4 teams of females. So we call them female engagement teams, and train them. And then I had some women officers supervising, and we pushed these teams out, and they went into over 150 buildings to have direct one-on-one contacts with these thousands of women, who often, many of them never even left the barracks building because of cultural nuances. And so anyway, I also made sure that the data was being captured. So every day, each team would report. They'd give us 2 reports. And within 2 days, we recognized very quickly that there were some massive liabilities in terms of the lack of medical care, OBGYN, again, they were bleeding for months, miscarriages, a lot of other, psychiatric issues. So then once we had the data and we saw the trends were hitting us in the face, I was enacting the staff to do their part, whether it was the logistics, ordering, things like underwear and bras, because these women had nothing for 3-4 months, one set. Or it could have been, the personnel, making sure that we had interpreters that spoke the language in a way that, covered down on some of these mountainous tribes. Everybody had a role. It was the signal, it was the information officers, all of them sort of rallied once we got the data. And then within a week, we were making some significant changes in terms of holding our contractors accountable that were dealing with responding to medical issues, or the cleaning issues in the barracks, or the food issues that they were facing. So, it comes down to, you can either kind of say, hey, there's a problem, or you can really interject, look these people in the eye, get them to trust you, get that data, and then there's no disputing it. Then actions need to happen. So it's kind of the quick version there.
2 things that I'm pulling out of that. And one is, every one of your people wanted to be part of something better. So they all wanted to participate, and they had the ability to in their way, where their skill set was. But I think the biggest picture out of that is you met people where they are. And I think that's really the key, right? You have to meet people where they are, not where you are. You might be in a different space and be far more evolved, speak a different language, have different issues you're facing. But if you're not meeting them where they are, they can't come to where you are. And I think that really does make a difference when you're being present. I can't thank you enough. Teresa, you are Chief Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Officer, and I'm sure that you're running into people that want to feel like they're heard, people that want to feel like they belong. I would love for you to share, obviously over a big organization, I'd love for you to share maybe a couple of common threads that you have to constantly go back to get people to be present and in the moment, and where everybody is, and how you get that message out on a larger scale, so that we're hearing diversity and inclusion everywhere, right? It doesn't matter where you go. It's a buzzword that's absolutely everywhere. And I think people are throwing it into sentences just for the sake of throwing it into sentences, but you're really actively living it and breathing it. So how are you doing that, being present for the larger picture and also for the individual?
Well, and it's great to have heard about your scenario, Erica. Again, commending all of you for the work that you did with refugees and those individuals that came from other parts of the world that are new to our country and have different cultures, which is what the diversity, equity, and inclusion is all about, right? It's really making sure that everyone feels like they belong, that they feel included, and that they're part of an organization that cares about them for who they are, and that they can bring their own self to work, right? Because sometimes we feel like we can't always bring our own self to work. I think, for our company and our organization, and we have so many that fall under our umbrella, is just making sure that we are present and we are listening. And we're also making sure that our leaders understand the importance, because sometimes you can, hear and talk to people and be present with them, but making sure leadership understands the criticality of them being involved and also present, and understanding the importance of inclusion within their own companies. Because again, with real estate, and you deal with this too, Tami, you've got the brokerages, you've got the franchises, you've got, individuals that manage each office. So there's a lot of people that are in the mix when it's working with different independent contractors who are agents, as well as individuals that are employees. So you've got two aspects, right? But then you also have the consumer. So we really have 3 clients that we're working with at any given time. So making sure that we are delivering services, making sure that we're also present with all those individuals are really critical in those different pieces. I do want to share a real quick story over the weekend, because I think this, from a personal perspective, is something that we all do no matter where we are. Sometimes we are so busy in our own little world and universe of what we've got going on. And I don't know if you've ever been with somebody, and after you've left, somebody will say to you, oh, what did you, who you were with? Oh, so do you know where are they from? And you realize you don't know where they were from, or what their real job was, or you didn't ask those questions because you were so busy doing other stuff that you actually, I don't know what you do, that's, I don't know if that's happened to any of you. I remember over the weekend we had company, we were celebrating the 4th, and I was so busy making sure that I had condiments out, that I had burgers and patties and all these things done, right? And didn't get the time to really talk to any of the guests. And I felt like, okay, that's it. I'm going to take the time to do that and find out, where are they from and what do they do, and really be present, and what an impact and what a big difference that made, because that's how you connect with people, right? You learn about who they are, what they, we had so many similarities. They were from this town and I was from that town. And it was not until I talked to them that I realized I'm present in this moment. And that's how companies need to structure every single, individual that they work with, to learn about who they are and be present at the time that you're there, because it is valuable. And one day you turn around and that person is no longer there. And through COVID, we learned that, right? We learned those people that we cared about, that we thought were going to be there forever, pass away, right? Or they, got sick and then you weren't able to talk to them. So I think it's really important, from a perspective, from a corporation, from whatever you do, that we all be present, and stop always being, so busy that we can't take the time to just look and talk without any other distractions.
I love that. I love that. I think that whole thing about being present and being in the moment, and tomorrow's not promised. So I just couldn't agree with you more. And we do catch ourselves, right? Hopefully we catch ourselves more often than not when we just get caught up in the checklist and the to-do list, and we're checking off all of the boxes instead of really being there while someone is trying to share something with you, share something about their life. And it's a terrible feeling if you go by and you didn't take advantage of that opportunity. Kelly, you're hopefully happily retired vice president from inside sales for the United States for UPS. And the first thing I think of every time I think of you is even before COVID, you were all doing things remotely, right? I mean, it goes with the job, but the company is so enormous. How do you be present with that many people doing that many different jobs when, I mean, you could teach everybody that's trying to figure out that hybrid model right now with, coming out of COVID. How do you do that and do it effectively and efficiently, but really still make people feel they matter and create a culture that makes a difference? So how did you do that in such a big organization? And how do you continue to do that now with your, philanthropy work? How are you continuing to do that now?
I think what Teresa said is so important. I think UPS learned a long time ago with that personal connection is critical, right? And so they built a structure corporately to ensure that no manager or supervisor ever got too many people. And in fact, we've done study after study after study with how many people is the right amount that you can still have a personal connection with and still be able to get the task done, let's say. So UPS is over 500,000 people, many of them in hubs, driver groups, sales groups. I had over 1,200 people across the country. What we really do is we do break it down. We do set up a process, very similar, I think, to what Erica was mentioning with the military. So if you're a senior leader at UPS, it was determined that if you have over 15 people as direct reports, it's too many. Because as a senior leader, you can't get a one-to-one relationship if you've got 25 different people coming at you all the time. If you are a leader of a hub group, you can have a little bit larger group, obviously, because it's a one task type structure. But it all depends on what your group's task is and then how many people would be the right amount. Because as soon as you start to lose the personal connection, not only do you struggle as a leader, the quality of the work goes down. It gets diminished, it gets reduced. Errors start to be made because the training wasn't right. You don't know what's going on in someone's life, so you don't even understand why they're performing at the level they are, what's going on. There's so many factors that impact the quality of your product. So again, I highly suggest if you're in the corporate world out there that you take a look at your reporting structures and you ensure that your management team isn't overloaded with too many people. And sometimes it might cost you a little bit more upfront to add an extra manager or an extra supervisor, an extra director or VP, but it's well worth it if the quality of your product becomes much higher. And that obviously leads to better profits and all kinds of other things. But anyways, for the business sense, right, I think it's really important to know your people. And UPS is a firm believer in that and really pushes that. So again, I think that's a critical piece of running a good business today and being a successful leader.
So on the charitable side, on the philanthropy side of helping to save the oceans.
Yes. It's even harder. It's even harder on the nonprofit side. I will tell you, because you've got people coming in, volunteering their time, right? Trying to assist you in so many ways. And when you're on the board, you're trying to ensure that you use everyone's talents to the fullest. And sometimes in the volunteer world, it is hard, Teresa, as you mentioned, you've got so many tasks. How do you get to know everybody? They come from different backgrounds, et cetera. But I think the key, again, is communication, and it's regular communication. Typically, set up your meeting, make sure it's at a regular time, it's consistent every month, and make sure that you have a chance to meet face-to-face in a personal way, as well as having the remote meetings that you do. We've been talking too about the importance of board meetings, the importance of getting people together. COVID showed us we could do a lot remote, but COVID also showed us what we lost by doing things remote. So I think it's critical that there's that balance. There's always that balance. So on the philanthropic side, I'd say, again, you're dealing with people from so many different backgrounds. Ensure not only do they get a place at the table, but they get that chance to tell their story, back to what Teresa was saying, and that you listen and you take the time. So using technology to its fullest is critical in today's world. I'd even say, Tami, I'd even say for every mother out there, I don't know how you don't multitask, because it's craziness right now for working moms and everything else. But I'll tell you, there's a time and place to put it down, as you all have mentioned, and really focus. Eye contact, looking at the person, active listening, all those types of things.
I love that. I love that. I think, eye contact and getting to know the people personally and getting to know their story. I don't know about any of the rest of you getting a couple minutes older, but I write everything down so that before I'm going to meet with that person again, I can look at it and then I can go back to it so that they know they matter. It's not because they don't matter that I might not remember. It's because you have so many tasks at hand. So it's okay to write things down and make sure you review it before you get in front of this person again, so that you are focused on their priorities and not necessarily on yours. I really do think that matters. Desiree, you are obviously CEO of NAWRB and started this whole big organization, and then started this council with passion projects in mind. You've really impacted so many lives by doing that. So how do you stay present in both this and in your business?
Very interesting question. And I learned from the personal side, I'll address that for that. I learned as a mother, thinking that economic growth and the opportunity to scale was so important, that as my children, I did everything I could to make them the best. For a year and a half, I breastfed every single one of them. They were incredibly healthy. No one got anything other than me for 6 months. I mean, TMI, right? But the idea is that I gave them all the nutrients they needed to be the best health-wise, to continue to grow. And then I said, okay, dear, they're now yours. It's your job to be the soccer, coach, the baseball coach, the swimming coach, And I focused on work, and I was there for events, but not enough. And so I live with that guilt every day that I wasn't present for my children to scale. So now I make sure that, as I made a pact with them, that they're all adults. I'm an empty nester for the last 2 years, that if there's an event and I say I'm going to go, hell or high water, I'm there. I make sure I'm there. I'm present. The phone's gone. I don't bring a computer. I'm completely removed from society, I'm in the moment, to the point of Teresa. I got to make sure that, everything's out. Everything's perfect. We're all in the perfect mode. Perfect is no longer in Desiree's mind. It's about, let's just get it done. Let's enjoy. Let's get it going, because organic is the way to go, because that's how I was brought up. So flip that to the business side. I realized, think about everyone that's on this call right now as part of this council. Even though a couple of you are in the same vertical, you are very different in how you run your businesses of the verticalness. So the idea is that I wanted to take it to your pitch, Tami, that it's a 50,000 level. Let's take it to the galaxy level of how we can integrate, because you're only strong as your weakest link. So if you think of, unfortunately, Chitra's not here, from the health perspective, your return on health. If you don't have health, COVID taught us, doesn't matter how much money you have or don't have, health is everything, right? And time is the most important currency. So the idea is that you think of our sustainability. Being present is that currency that's most important, that we're here on the call, or we're here in the moment with our family, or here in our moment, as Kelly talked about, being personal, understanding, because when they're having a bad day, it's not reflective of their job, but it's reflective that you can give and take, and make sure you can be there to help them through that time as a company perspective, right? So I love to share why. I finally knew. I knew the rules of the game. I knew how to do this, because we are experts in what we do. So if I'm not the expert, but I can combine the experts together, you could learn things like you see from the conferences, government agencies. I had no idea we had this, and this. We could scale. It's like Erica came to me with the resettlement and refugees for Zulu time. I'm like, this is brilliant. How come? these are the things that I want to bring together so that we can go and do it now versus then, oh, if I only knew that when I was a younger age, I could have done better at doing that. So that's the whole purpose of the council. And I'm so thankful that the passion, the heart, and the grit, and the stories we've all gone through, and the experiences we've gone through, good and bad, because it's created who we are. And that's why, you know, being present is so powerful, because if you can't experience the difference, everyone go to a hockey game, ice hockey, being watching on TV versus being in the arena up front on the glass is a very, very different experience. It's being present in the moment, of feeling the energy. And that's why we want these principles every month. We want to relive and feel that energy of being together, but let everyone else see us live as we talk and have our meetings.
I love that. You know, humility and humanity, I think, is so important. And I'm so grateful for you for sharing, you know, kind of that I wish I had, right? You know, my mom died very young. She was only 47 when she passed away. And the number one thing she said to me is never say, I wish I had. And I think it was really good advice but that doesn't mean that we don't all make mistakes all the time. I know 2 things I corrected in regards to raising my children for being present is, number one, Sundays we'd pick what we want to do during the week. And then 3 kids, I would, as an individual, what's most important that you'd like to do with me this week? And Megan might want to go to the library. Shane might want to go, you know, shooting or just go for a drive. And William might want to lift weights. It didn't matter what it was. It mattered that I did it, but I didn't commit to Tuesday at 3:00. I just said, we'll do it this week. And then I did it as early in the week as possible so that the entire time they were growing up, I never had to break a promise. But anytime I felt things tilted, that it's felt like our family was off kilt somehow, so something was missing, I would cancel everything and dismiss them all from school and take them to the beach for the day, and just walk in and say they have an appointment, but something to set us all back on track again, right? To get us back in the present moment and have that opportunity to be able to connect. So I would love, while we're here, and I'll start with you, Erica, what is that thing, you know, that you wish you had been present, that now you've shifted it, and it's not only is it really set off, because I think we help more people with mistakes we've made, that we fixed it and we found a solution for it, and so that they know there's a solution for them while they're sitting there right now. Maybe there are some people that are stuck. They're stuck on a specific topic. They're stuck on something that they're still bothered with and troubled with. We're all human. We all make mistakes. We're all in a learning curve. We all have different exposure to experiences. So we're all at different levels in different things, depending on what we've had for experiences. And a lot of those experiences have given us character that maybe makes you a better mother, makes you a better grandmother, makes you a better leader, makes you a better friend or a better significant other, or just better as a whole. So Erica, I'd love to hear from you on how did you miss something, you weren't in the present tense, and then now how it's actually helped you future tense because you learned so much from the experience.
Well, you know, I was very heavily involved in veteran advocacy. I just got tired of seeing the numbers go down every year and more money being thrown at the problem on how to deal with transitioning veterans once they leave the service. So a lot of times, as you all know, we go to these conferences, especially if you're in some kind of leadership role, you're really busy, you're running around, and you sometimes don't make the time that you need to. And so one time there was, you know, someone struggling, and I had met with them for just a little while and, you know, moved on to the next task. So I later found out that, you know, this person, she had committed suicide, which is common in our world. And so from that point, you know, I made it a priority that, you know, yes, I may be speaking to 1,000 people, but to be more in tune with someone's vibe and just look at their body language and recognize if someone's truly having a problem or they just want to talk to be social. So, you know, once that happened, I mean, I'll give you an example. I noticed that there was a woman, and she was very removed and slumped over, and, you know, her body language was not confident at all. And so I just went up and started talking to her and asked her what her background was. And she was a military intelligence officer. You know, she led hundreds of men, you know, in peacetime and war. And I was looking at her like, what happened to that confidence and that ability to be strong and lead that, kind of an organization. And she had started her own business, which was it was a software company to create, analytics and analyze the data. And so I said, okay, what did you do in military intelligence? She's like, well, I confirmed or denied information. We brought that information after we analyzed it to the commanders so they can make better informed decisions, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, fantastic. So sell that story, what you did in the service and how it relates to what you're doing now. There's that credibility factor there. And so I was just really focused on her, and, everybody's like, blah, 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 blah. And within 30 minutes, again, the way that veterans can speak to one another in more of a tough love kind of way, I was like, sit up, where's that confidence? You're completely capable. What is holding you back? And I saw her body language, improve and a little more confidence. And she spoke, clear and more direct. And she was like, I got more speaking to you in 20 minutes than I have in 2 years dealing with all of these federal agencies and nonprofits out there that deal with veterans. She's like, you have, sort of paved the path on how it's a difficult process, but where we can end up in the end. And, to really kind of own my story and sell that to help me in business. And anyway, it's just one of many examples. I know you all probably have these kinds of stories. But, it's a shame to lose anybody in life, and you got to take that time. And on our obituaries, it never talks about how much money you made in your businesses. It's how you've touched people individually. And if you can take that time and be present and just really focus in on this person, you never know what kind of change and impact that can have on someone.
All right, you made me cry. I love that. Thank you. Teresa?
Yeah, and Erica, there's so many cues all around us, right? If we just pay attention, we can see people and we can see their struggle. And a lot of times, I was, and I'm going to say this kind of sound weird, it was fortunate, and I would say, in that I did actually learn this lesson in life very young. And so I was 18, but prior to that, and Desiree knows this story because she learned a lot about me during our interview. But, when I was 10, my mother had open heart surgery. And from that moment on, she suffered from heart problems through until the age of 18 when she actually passed away. So I was 18 when she died. She was only 38 years old, Tami. And so, the one thing that I learned was, because I was in high school at the time that my mother started to get sick and dating Mike, who is now my husband, and then off to college. So it was my first year in college, and I was coming home for the weekend when I heard that she had had a stroke. And I remember having spent Christmas with her. So she died on January the 26th, but I had spent Christmas. We had flown from from Mississippi, where I lived, to Caracas, Venezuela, to visit family. And I did not want to go because I wanted to spend Christmas with Mike, right? The guy who I was dating, which is typical, right? Normal in that high school. Oh, I want to be with Mike. And the entire time I was in Venezuela, I was thinking about, wish I was with Mike, instead of realizing how important it was to have that time with my mom, right? Because it was just me and her that had gone to Caracas. Well, on the way back from Caracas is when she really got sick, and I could see her heart even beating outside of her body because the elevation had affected her. And at that moment, I realized, I cannot believe that this was the moment that I had with her. And from that moment on, it was just her. It was just me and her, and spending time with her. And of course, when I got back, I went back to college, and a week later, that's when she was hospitalized and I lost her. From that moment on, it was my duty or role, whatever you want to call it, to really always be in the moment, like with my father and my sisters. And that is what I've done with my children. I just think it's so important, because there are times that you get so crazy and so busy in life that you don't realize the really true important thing is your family and the people that you love, because they're not always guaranteed to be around for tomorrow. And so just that lesson, I try to go to every single wedding I'm ever invited to. And I also try to go to every funeral because I know that people are always there and I get to see and be in front of them. So my goal is always, if you invite me to a wedding, I will be there. If you, and again, those are the times that I know that I feel that people are always gathered and together, and you get to spend time with them. So that is, in short, what, because at my wedding, my mother wasn't there. And I just feel like, and it happened shortly after her passing. So I feel like that's so critical. So I consider myself fortunate in learning that lesson early, because I try and have lucky enough feel like I've been to most involved with most of my family and my kids and the important times in their lives and the things that matter.
I love that. And being present is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of times we don't feel like it is, because you get so many things going on at the same time and you feel like you have to and you must, instead of you choose to and you want to. But being present for the things that matter most is without question a choice. And thank you so much for that, Teresa. Kelly?
I'd echo what both Erica and Teresa have said. I mean, specifically the wedding and funeral thing. I just got to say that's a critical thing. Be at those big events, whatever they are. I mean, that's something I really worked hard at doing, because I was relocated 8 different times. I was all over the country, and it does take a choice, Tami. You're right. And it's work to make sure you're there. But when you look back after the job is gone and you're retired, what you'll remember are those events that came up that you attended and you were there for your family, etc. The wish I had thing. I feel fortunate. I don't have too many of those, but I have one really big one. I don't have a lot of little ones, but I got a big one. My grandparents lived with me, and I did not have a good relationship with my grandparents. And I really wish I had spent more time listening to them, because they had stories to tell. And back to, I think, what everyone's saying, right? You don't really miss it till all of a sudden they're gone. And then you're like, whoa, all these questions that you had or stories you wanted to hear that you thought you always had time for. So I guess, it's those relationships. I wish I had a better relationship overall with my grandparents. And I only had one set. The other set had died way before me. And so I look at people now whose my parents died younger too. So I look at people whose parents are alive, or even maybe have a grandmother, and I'm just jealous. I am jealous. I get like, wow, aren't you spending like all your time with them? And I know there's a myriad of issues that come up caring for the elderly and, everything else. But boy, if I had had that shot, it would have been nice. So that would be my big one.
Yeah, I think it is, everyone wants more, right? More moments, more occasions, more opportunities, more relationships, probably not necessarily even more relationships, better ones that are really deeper. More experiences. I think that, one of my best suggestions to everyone is rate yourself literally on a scale of 1 to 10, your closest relationships, your significant other, your children, grandchildren, cousins, parents, whoever's in that circle, your closest friends, the people that you work with really closely. Rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, because if you're a 7, then just ask yourself, how do we get to an 8? Maybe it's getting to know them a little bit better so that you know where they're from, right, Teresa? But, so that you find more common ground, so that the time that you do get together, because we don't have hours and hours and days, but we can decide to make time, even if it's getting up earlier and because you want to provide an experience for somebody, and losing out on a little bit of sleep or losing out on some other opportunity. And I think that it's okay to make those choices that will work the best for you and your family, whatever that family consists of. I don't care if it's a cat, right? But whatever's going to work out the best for you, that you really are living with that deliberate intent, because deliberate intent will definitely take you to being in the present. Desiree, I know that you've mentioned this before about spending time with your kids, and I can tell you from having the opportunity to meet with them that you definitely had an enormous influence on their lives, which I think is beautiful. And so now you get to influence all these people. I know that you have, you've had people from that are in college that come in and are interns, have been interns for you. Did you decide on a list so that you invested and were really present in their lives to impact them? Because it's one of the things that you chose to do. Did you put together a list of here's the top things I want to do to find out what's important to them, or to help them to stay in the present moment, or to give them what it is they're looking for?
I actually put them all on a call at the same time. It was very interesting. So on a Sunday during the pandemic, I had 50 of them that got on a call on a Sunday, those who would take a Sunday for 2 hours, and I'd allow each one of them to tell me about their stories. And then it got generate. I want to speak. I wrote Veronica John, phenomenal. She did a whole blog on macaroni and cheese. What does that have to do with a lot of different things on recipes? But the idea is you got to see their personalities, how they made you feel, their energy. So, and they were all peers, meaning that they were all college students, or they're all just graduated from college, and women and men. But the idea is that the checklist was, I asked them questions. I want to tell them about their worst experience, their best experience, how they did something to make someone feel, what would they regretted, what they'd like to change. So there was no organic, I would say no, how excited I'm getting, right? There was no standard question. They were completely unprepared for the question, because they would have, okay, what did you do? And they thought they were going to be individually spoken to, and I put them all in the same group, and it allowed me to see who's going to shine and who is going to be more quiet. Because where do you have the time scale? So those who didn't get hired, I made sure they had a valuable 2-hour training session, as if they were being mentored on what it's take to get a successful interview, to what a way to go with it. Because remember, a lot of them were trying to find themselves. And how I got a lot of this experience was my fourth son had gone through he was in his senior year of college, and he didn't deal with it very well, to be very honest. And he had to take a bunch of classes during the summer to finally graduate in math. And here he's brilliant, fourth dimensional thinker. But the idea was he had to remove himself. And so the experiences I saw from him and several other people that I had run into, I was like, okay, this is what we need to keep being present, because they could see me at least, and they could hear my feeling in that relationship. But I'd like to, and so, during the course of the year with the interns, and that's where we're having a problem with the freedoms, and not to bring it up, but we're having a lot of changes in what we're allowed to do, what we're not allowed to do. And so we need to see that we've struggled. Before we got on the call, what does our story have been before? And that's why I love this session we have every month, because it really brings our heart and soul, and we get to learn and expose ourselves in different ways. We learn something new and different. At the same time, we've heard some of the stories before. And one of the things that I learned, I'd like to, if you don't mind, touch, is when my mother went past from having cancer, from breast cancer. She had it for 18 years. And she thought holistically she could take care of herself. And she did not believe in doctors. She said, doctors are the worst place, hospitals are the dirtiest place. You don't ever want to go to the hospital unless it's life or death. We saw what happened in COVID, right? That was the last thing you want to do. Don't go to the hospital, come back. And so before my mother passed, I made it a point that I took all the photographs, all the videos, everything I'd ever done since she had not seen the children or various different events or gone different places for a lot of times together. And I created a 6-hour presentation that I sat with her in the hospital bed and went through every single picture, explained the story. And I think that's where we forget that we don't spend enough time being the storyteller, our past, our present, our future, and where we came from, of everyone we met. And the idea is to Teresa, you made the comment saying, well, I didn't even know where they're from. I didn't know. And that's where the whole concept of getting to know you as a person, the She's Centerfold, you not as a business leader, as a great executive, or what your accomplishments are, but what makes you tick inside and how you feel and how that changes as we go through the time and effects of life, what makes how we're going to be more connected. Because you remember someone's feeling than you are about what they said, because they're going to make you remember how you want to go, I remember that, just, oh, it was so exciting. Think about the last time you had a romantic dinner, or the music that has a reference to first time you engaged, first time you had someone that you cared about, first time you had an opportunity to do something. You're like, yes, it reminds you of something so fantastic. And that is, I believe, what we need to go with the relationship. So I really highly encourage everyone, for my lesson, is to capture the thought and then show someone and tell that to your loved ones.
I love that.
Mhm.
You know, and I think the more you share that you're in the moment and you're sharing your whole story and sharing all the moments that they missed, they have the opportunity to share in return, so that you really do get a whole lot closer. You know, I believe that there's a huge difference between happiness and fulfillment. And fulfillment comes from the unconditional laughter when you're together with people in the present tense. That comes from hugging and crying it out over stuff that you have to work your way through. Those are the things that take you from happiness to fulfillment. The actual activities themselves, that doesn't do it. All of us have to make a living. All of us have an awful lot of responsibilities, but it's those moments that really bring out the fulfillment in everybody, even finding what your passion project is and what you were really put here for. I think that so much of that really does matter in the being in the present tense. So who wants to add something about being present before we go today?
Well, you mentioned a couple things, and contentment, right? Just because they always say being totally happy, you're never going to achieve, but you can certainly be content. And you mentioned a couple things about being present. And one of the things that, if you ever notice on movies, I'm a movie watcher, everyone knows I love movies, is that, every movie that has a huge following, it's about relationships lost because they weren't present. There was all these, it's almost like in almost every major movie, it's because the person wasn't there and they're trying to rekindle their relationship with their child, or, whatever. So I think it's really important that you are present. And one of the things that I really like, when I came to work for Home Service America and Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Gino actually does, and I think I've mentioned it before, what we call our interview questions. And they're not like an interview, but an interviewing yourself. What's your interview? And it really is so insightful, the questions, because it's not like an interrogation. It's just, we have accountability partners that we change out every month. Every single month, I have a new accountability partner, and we're with them for 30 days. And every day we connect for 15 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever we have time for, every day, Monday through Friday. Can you imagine? And when I first did this, I thought, there is no way, who has time to do this every single day? But somehow we do. We always do, with every accountability partner that I've had. And we go through those 18 questions. And the 18 questions are, tell me about how you grew up. What's your background like? Were you in sports in school? What's your family life like? There's 18 questions. Gino can actually recite them like that. But it really, you get to know that person outside of the work. Because, we always think about, they're the president of this company, or they're the chief, you really get to know them and you find all these commonalities. And I think that's what I love, because for those 10 minutes, you're actually present and you're like engaged and interested. And there was this happened a couple of years ago. I'll never forget this article that I read, where this man had $100 bill. And I think I've mentioned it before. He walks into a Starbucks, and the sign says, for the first person that comes up to me and asks for this $100 bill, it's yours. He walked in, everyone was in their computers, on their cell phones. Not a single person walked up to get that $100 bill because they were not present. So I think it's really important that we are visual, and it's so critical in real estate, because our agents are every day, as they look into homes, have to be present when they're walking into a stranger's house with a stranger, a lot of times themselves. And from a safety perspective, and Tami, you are the queen of this. This is really critical that we are always aware and present so that we can also protect our own selves. So from a safety perspective, that's the last thing I just kind of wanted to bring up on being present.
Awesome. Awesome. Anyone else?
You know, I'll just say a couple things as well. First of all, what really annoys me is the people walking through the airport on their cell phones and they're oblivious to all the people around them. I mean, if you want to talk about a time to be present, when you're walking, the number one problem is falling off curbs, falling into people, whatever. So be present when you're walking. But besides that, my main point would be, you know, I think one of the things we miss these days is just getting outside, getting into nature, spending a little bit of quiet time with yourself. And I think, Tami, you mentioned whether it's prayer, whether it's meditation, but actually getting outside, I think really helps calm your mind. Because I'll tell you, I find it hard sometimes to calm down the brain. I'm trying to be present, but your brain just keeps going and you're thinking about 1,000 different rebuttals or a different way to respond, or, you know, any myriad of things. So I would just tell you, try to get outside a little bit, try to get into nature and, you know, listen to the birds, I don't know, and just take a moment for yourself. That's all I would like to say. Thanks, Tami.
Thank you.
I'll echo Kelly's comment 100%. But I just looked up the statistics. 330 people die per year doing a selfie or watching their phone after falling off a cliff.
Thank you. God. I know it's like it's a basic, but let's get it together, people.
So you might say that as a, you know, going in, you know, 330 people die a year from playing on a cell phone, walking off a cliff. You might get a reaction out of them.
Well, you know, we were supposed to bring a book, so I'm going to give you my book because that was the last thing I meant to do. And, you know, I don't read that much, but I did like Maria Shriver's book. And the book is called What's in It for Me. And it's about reflection, about meditation, about the power of being present and prayer and whatever you want to do, just making sure that you're always present within your own self. And that book is just great. So I just wanted to bring that one up as a mention today.
Excellent.
So my book is Blue Fishing by Steve Sims, and it's about giving people the experiences of a lifetime and really getting to know what people's whys are so that you can get really close. Teresa, you mentioned in the 13 things, if anybody needs a simplified version of getting connected with whoever you're in front of, form, family, occupation, recreation, motivation. So just think of the word form, you know, what do you have for family? What do you love doing together? What did you do before you came into this? What made you come into this? What do you do for fun? And a lot of times they'll tell you, well, man, I can't even remember something that I did for fun, and you can encourage them. I believe firmly in spoiling people with experiences and not stuff. One of my presents to my granddaughter was to take her to the beach. It's her favorite place in the world. I swear she's part mermaid. And to take her to the beach and to do a lobster roll and do lobster and steamers. And we went late yesterday, and I took her and her best friend, Ella, and they literally were so much in the moment and having so much fun that they put sand around their feet to make themselves look like mermaids and said, we're turning into mermaids. We have to stay here now. And we don't want to leave. We don't want to leave this moment. And I just thought, okay, today's a win, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that all of us should really think about that opportunity to provide more moments, because you will, without question, be present. I can't thank you guys enough. I love you all. I think that, I know for sure you enrich my life, and I know that you're enriching others too. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Tami, for hosting. This has been incredible. Next month is Prepare for the Future. Women with advanced skill sets today will be ready for tomorrow's challenges. Think about what we're all going through, right? Dr. Chitta Durai will be hosting. I'm so very excited. So remember, everyone, what you're seeing this, please tell us your story. The whole idea is that the more stories, the more we can help, because we all have pain points and strengths, and the more we can share, the more we can grow. And thank you very much for having an incredible session today, like always, and have a beautiful day. And please be safe and stay healthy, everyone. So thank you all again. And until next time, and thank you very much. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.